Hey friends, this is Pastor Fieberkorn here with you with a edition of Tuesdays with Marty for Tuesday, July the 16th. I think I've missed a couple of these. Summer's a little hit or miss. I know I keep saying that, but it just is. So thank you for continuing to tune in and dial in, and we'll hopefully make these devotions more consistent as we go through. Yeah, I really like this quote from Luther today. I think this came from his 1535 Galatians commentary. I don't always know where these quotes are from because sometimes I get them from online sources or whatever. I suppose it's possible I've used a false quote from Luther, but anyway, I do happen to know the source of this one. So 1535, that's 6 years after the Small Catechism. Luther dies, I believe, in 1546, 3. So this is the last decade of his life, and he's had a rough life. I mean, he's had a bounty on his head his entire life, and um, certainly felt the weight of the world on his shoulders at times. And he's also been in ministry long enough to notice that he's not alone in bearing a cross in his vocation of being a minister to God's church. And so he says these words. He says, no wonder that God in his special grace. Now, think about that. No wonder God in his special grace. And you're thinking, sent his son, Jesus Christ, to die for the sins of the world. No, the special grace he's talking about here is subjecting the ministers of the gospel to all kinds of afflictions. Now, why is that a special grace of God to afflict the ministers of his church? Because he says, otherwise they could not cope with the ugly beast called vainglory, or pride probably is more common in our language today. There is a distinction between vainglory and pride, but it's pretty subtle, and mostly we mean the same thing. Vainglory is to be, full of oneself, prideful, boastful, sort of you think you're better than other people or whatever. Now, that's a particular temptation of a minister. Number one, people see us in, vestments on Sunday morning. Oftentimes people will see me at a church picnic or something, or out at Walmart. Maybe I didn't comb my hair that morning. Maybe I've got on a shirt with stains and a few holes because I didn't plan on running into one of my members. And I'll say hello to someone in a checkout line and they'll say, oh, didn't even recognize you out of uniform. And I realize in those moments that people see me up there in a white robe on Sunday morning and sort of picture this holy man who has his life together and, lives a pretty pious life. Well, I don't try to rush into sin, but I am far from perfect. And in fact, sometimes people, when they get to know pastors a little more on more of a one-on-one level, they're actually a little disappointed with the pastor because they built him up to be someone in their mind that he turns out really not to be. And that can be a really difficult to negotiate close friendships in the parish for pastors. Maybe that's part of the affliction we bear. I guess it comes with the job. I'm not complaining about that. It just is what it is. But think about it. People build the pastor up. He gets to talk. Maybe people sometimes or most of the time like what he says. Everybody knows the pastor's name. The pastor's always, especially in a congregation as large as Zion, forgetting someone's name and embarrassed about it because it's someone they see all the time and the name has finally slipped their mind and they have to go remember it. But the pastor is sort of famous in his little church community. When he walks across the parking lot and someone says, Pastor, around these parts right now, there's only two heads that are going to be turning. And so you can get full of yourself, I guess. You can think, oh, my people like me, or they told me good sermon today, or they sent me a nice card during Pastor Appreciation Month and how much I'm loved and valued, okay? And you could see how this could puff a person up. And so Luther says God's going to send special afflictions into the lives of ministers to keep them from that. You think about Paul, who had this thorn in his flesh. That was a reading from a few weeks ago, right? To keep you from being conceited, God says, I've given you a thorn in the flesh, a messenger of Satan. And Paul asks for God to remove that thorn, and he says, nope, my grace is sufficient for you. See, my grace, the special grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. Well, we wouldn't often think of the afflictions in our lives as God's special grace. But if that's true for ministers, I suppose that is also true for just any Christian. When you see hardship in your life, it's never fun, never easy. Not easy to say when you're not going through it, but maybe you could wonder if that's a special grace of God to keep you on the way and the path to eternal life. All right, well, that's a good Tuesdays with Marty. We will see you later on this week. God's peace to you.